Hello, everyone, and welcome to ECS 430, Multicultural Education and Administration. Quick course description and intro. First of all, I'm Dr. Jorge Diaz. Jorge. I hope this to be a pretty exciting class. I like my courses to be as interactive as possible. Hopefully, we'll be able to communicate through different mediums. Obviously, our normal Campus Web, and I also like an added Adobe Connect weekend office sessions, if you will, discussion sections, lecture sessions, and so forth to accentuate our learning and our environment. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather these days, but we'll work through it pretty well. Again, I like the coursework and assignments and so forth to be interactive. Therefore, I like the communication aspect and the collaboration form, of course, along with all the regular assignments, but also the one-on-one and group work that I'm going to try to instill in the syllabus as kind of a new facet to our online, to our general or regular online system. Quick description, as it is in the syllabus. The course will address administrative practice within an environmental context of expansive diversity. Students will review challenges and opportunities associated with multiculturalism as they relate to staffing, organization, leadership, stakeholder communication. That is that's called the Reader's Digest version. I'd like to expand that also to remember that as we all teach in many different places and locations, we run into, of course, all types of cultures, not just in the staffing needs and in our needs as far as administrators and running programs, but also in the fact that we must address the way we approach multicultural education in general, and how we bring this to the actual student, the stakeholders, the parents, and so that we have not just a diverse population, but an accepting population, one that's able to truly grasp and enjoy our differences. And I believe that this is the crux of this course. So the course really is more twofold, as opposed to just from the administrative standpoint. There is a lot to be said for mixing it up, as I say. So, first of all, let's quick introduction to the course, and let's go over our university outcomes, learning outcomes and competencies. Will be outcome 1, communication, express, interpret ideas clearly using a variety of written, oral, and or visual forms. I'm going to put in the handout sections of the Campus Web, you'll find I'm going to start loading instructional materials on how to properly produce PowerPoints and so forth, so that we can bring these into our Campus Web type and our Adobe Connect sessions, so that you have the opportunity to both not just turn in written work, but actually present, and you can critique and present your work. And I think that's always important, especially from the leadership standpoint. So we will construct coherent, organized expressions appropriate to a variety of disciplines and audiences, and apply basic mechanics of language, syntax, and so forth. These are the writing portions. Remember that all material is in APA style, okay, and it has to be completed in APA style. So let's take a look at outcome number 2, critical and creative thinking. Use different modes and disciplinary and interdisciplinary inquiry to explore ideas and issues from multiple perspectives. It's very important when we're looking at multiculturalism and how we deal in staffing, and of course how we are careful not to always culturally staff our 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 people in that I'll give an example. I've often seen in elementary schools very few male teachers in many of the elementary schools, the permanent male teachers. Often they're given not this is and often and this is pretty documented. Often they're given kind of the rougher of the children, and there's always the older of the children and the rougher. Why? Because, well, for some type of a cultural gender type ideal, it seems to come out that way, and too often it really doesn't always fit that norm. Just because you have a male gender teaching at an elementary level doesn't mean that they automatically must take on all the tougher to learn and the harder staff and so forth. It makes no sense. It really should suit or whatever normal staffing systems are being used in the early childhood. This could be even more difficult if we have small nuances in the way males and females approach different age groups, and the idea of understanding your staff, their own cultural backgrounds, their own personalities, and this is highly important, especially from a leadership standpoint, and saves you a great deal of trouble in being able to bring the best for your children, which is really what we're here for, is to bring the best to our clientele, which is in essence our children. So that is important as we look at critical and creative ways of approaching problems and situations so that we can work properly and staff our institutions so that we bring our best foot forward. Also, outcome 4, okay? Social and global perspective. This is very, especially if you're teaching. I've had learners in Hawaii and learners in Miami, Ohio, Vermont. It could be from anywhere. And geography alone changes how one teaches in February in Miami as opposed to how one teaches in February in Tennessee or Vermont or Washington State. The weather alone causes changes in demographics and how well a child can make it to and from school, and everything comes into play. Clothing, just general perspective, and the mix and the different cultures, and how these are addressed. So it's quite important to take a look at the global and social perspectives that deal with our particular institutions. Now, the major competencies aligned with the NAEYC standards. One, promoting child development and learning, always number one, and should always be number one in all our coursework and all our doings. We should wake up every morning with that in mind and reflect every day at the end of the day. Did we bring that best foot forward? Did we make sure that we promoted child development? Did our children we were, did we promote this? Did we function towards that goal? That should be the underlying reason for everything, in my opinion. Now, standards 3, observing, documenting, and assessing and support young children and family. How important observation? There's obviously a whole course load on observation and assessment of children, which we go in deep. But here we'll be touching on observation, how children react to each other, how stakeholders and staffing reacts to children of different cultures and different perspectives. It is sometimes very difficult. just language alone and dialects of languages alone become a unique difficulty for staffing. Take myself. I'm a Cuban American, so my Spanish, the way I speak Spanish, is really a Caribbean. That much like many people from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, northern Colombia, along the coastlines, the Yucatan, and so forth. So the way I speak my Spanish could be is very different than the way that, let's say, someone from the mainland or that has whose etymology of the Spanish language is different from Mexico or Honduras, Nicaragua, so forth. So even the words are different. The way we our syntax is different, and those little changes, especially in young minds, do make a difference. And sometimes we have to make sure that our staff understands the clarification between parents, and it's not all Spanish is the same, just like not all English is the same. I have children that live in, my own children, that live in New Orleans. They don't even say it properly. Louisiana. And they speak, and the way they speak English is quite a bit different than the way my daughter does in Washington State. So, and it took a very short time for them to adapt to the different dialects, I should say. So we have to take that. So even those little nuances are important to take a look at. So observing and documenting how this reaction works. It's both not only important for your own action research as you change and adapt interventions and coursework and administrative work, all right, to you, but also to how we later implement the new systems and follow and carefully assess and document our materials. Connecting with children and families. Obviously, in the early childhood programs, we connect. That's a constant. It should be a constant involvement, constant all the time involvement of the parent and stakeholders. Make them involved. Give them the opportunity. Give them the opportunity to be involved in their early childhood education. The value of this level of education cannot be understated in any way at all. This is where it all begins. The love for education, the lifelong learning, the desire to be part of the larger group and to be able to communicate with that. It starts at a very young age, and with parents' involvement gives the child the confidence to be able to function at these levels. And so the family connection is, of course, and of course, Standard 5, using content knowledge to build the meaningful curriculum. This goes back to now where we're not just dealing here with the administrative part. Obviously, it's an administrative class, but we're not just dealing with the administrative part. We also have to bring forth the multicultural curriculum as prescribed. I mean, depending on whether a public or private institution, you may have already in place a multicultural curriculum that has to be presented. I mean, that is part of a state standard that is required for granting purposes and so forth, which becomes part of the administrative. So, okay, we have this multicultural, and then we have how do we best staff that, and so that we can bring that curriculum to fruition, and the children can best gain from this from those efforts. Again, so anyway, let's continue on to the course competencies. Okay, assess then changing diverse demographics emerging in the workplace. This happens, obviously, and you see it through high schools, and you see it through from early childhood all the way through colleges. People who initially want to go into teaching and love teaching, after a few years find that it's not really what it is that they're passionate about. They might want to be more administrators. They want to go into private business, whatever that might be. But so there is a high turnover rate in education in general. And there is a very high turnover rate in early childhood education. It's probably twofold at least to say. So how to adapt new and changing demographics as new staff or teachers come in, as old teachers leave. The transition periods, although children adapt at a younger age much quicker, there's still is that adaptation time. And this is where families help, because as long as you have if you have a strong family connection within your institution, the idea is not so traumatic as teachers change or move and classroom to classroom. If you have a multi-classroom area with different age groups or different sets of age groups, this works well. You might find with the very early to the 4-year-olds that change from one small class to another. And again, this helps. This is where all stakeholders become very important in how we take a look at our staffing and our administrative, plus our educational needs of our children. Anyway, that's a quick intro and the competencies. I hope this to be a very interesting class. I really want this to be a kind of a lead class in the idea of communicating on a relatively regular basis over the weekends and through the week, even if it's a few minutes here, a few minutes there, so that we maintain a steady stream of knowledge back and forth. I learn from you as much as you learn from me, and we get to enjoy this learning process through our academics and our hopefully into our future professional endeavors. Okay, well, welcome, and hopefully this will be a whole lot of fun. Okay.